All right, so we're back. How you doing, Daryl? You doing well in Australia?
Yeah, it's all good. I'm getting ready. Just got 2 weeks left here, and then it's straight into the classics, the other classics, the non-cobbled hillier classics, the Ardennes. But yeah, this is probably the next 4 weeks is probably the best weeks of bike riding that's coming up. So I think all the fans out there are looking forward to it. Um, it's been an interesting last week of racing, really, La Catalunya and Gent Welvegem. Yeah, super. I mean, it's been exciting to watch. It's been nice to see Roglic, you know, um, winning Catalunya. I think he's been due a big win. It's also nice for the bit of the old guard that are still involved in cycling that to show that it's not only about the young guys, which is super cool. It was an interesting race. I don't know if you got the chance to see it, but it was all
Yeah,
down to the wire on the last day.
it was really exciting. Ayuso was looking really good, and it looked like he was maybe going to win it. But then on that last day, that last attack, you've done that race many times. Those are your home roads. That course, I've never been out there. That looked really, really tough. The way he rode away, they never had a big gap. Roglic only 20 seconds or so, and but managed to hold on. And Ayuso didn't look like he was having the best day, I must say. But
No, he didn't have the
yeah,
best day, and also his team maybe didn't have the best day either. It seemed like they got a bit, uh, just a bit spread out. I don't think anyone expected Roglic to go so early. It was a ballsy move, but obviously that he didn't get that other time bonus before that. It was either make or break, right? And that's good. That's what makes the champions, right? They don't ride for second. They throw it all down and rather finish off the podium than not have tried at all. So
and what a race winner he is. Like you've said many times on this podcast, you said it's always the same guys who show up and take the big wins, and he's just an example of that. If you look how many, I think he has over 80, 82, 83 pro victories, and he's won so many of these 1 week stage races. He's just incredible. There's got to be more than just talent there. It's also, I think, just a winning mindset, right? A confidence, a self belief, an ability to suffer. He's got the complete package. I mean, he's just one of the best of our current generation.
yeah, it's just resilience. I think he's just got that like, you know. I guess when you win at that level, you're not afraid to try either. Kind of like, wow, doesn't work. I'm still one of the best bike riders here. If I slip down to second or I slip to fifth overall, it's not really going to change much. Um, and go for it. But yeah, it was interesting to see that Ayuso. But he's also done Torino before, possibly getting tired near the end of that. Also, Catalonia didn't have the best weather some days. It was looked like quite a difficult stage race, which it normally is. But yeah, really good. But I mean, if you look at Mads as well in Gent Welvegem, like man, it's like amazing to see these guys just attacking like 80k to go. It's like it's not
It's
in my
changed a
wildest
lot.
dreams would I think of going 80k to go.
Cycling has changed. It changed a lot. I mean, and it's these 5 or 6 guys who are able to do that. They're able to go out from, 50 k's, 80 k's. Guys like Pogacar and Mads and Van der Poel. It's the same. Even Remco. I mean, when he's at his best, it's really impressive. It's something we didn't see 10 years ago.
No, but it's like, but when you look at the guys chasing them, the team's chasing them. Guys are like chopping off. They hit the next climb, they're blowing. It's just like, I mean, the guys chasing them are not palookas. These guys are like the best bike riders in the world, and these guys are just so much better than everybody else. It just shows you the depth of these leaders at these races, and it kind of puts in perspective of like, when you watch these races and you think, oh, I could do that or whatever, but then you got to see the guys that they're actually riding away from, and you're just like I know those guys, and I'm like, man, those guys were chasing him, they were chopping off, and they couldn't catch him. Like chapeau, like you gotta be able to ride your bike well, but I mean, just handling and have the ability to think, what, I'll go for it. I'll go 80k from the confidence you got to have to go. I'm the strongest bike rider here. I'm sure I could go from 80k to go. That's
Yeah.
like
That,
everybody in the sport is normally thinking about saving, saving. Maybe these guys have just got different mentality of thinking. Like, well, what am I saving for? I'm the strongest guy here. I can just go from here.
they just must be so much stronger than a lot of the guys. It's just incredible. Even we saw that at the tour last year. The top 2 or 3 guys, with Remco, with Pog, with Vingegaard, they looked like they were in a different race compared to the rest, the way they were climbing. And it's similar in these classics with these top guys. It's just like they're at another level. And we saw Van der Poel riding away from Mads on Friday in E3. That was an incredible demonstration. He seemed a little annoyed that there was a crash early and there were some teams on the front pulling, and he seemed like he got angry and he was like, I'm going to show these guys. And the way he rode away there in anger, that was pretty impressive, especially since it was Mads Pedersen that he rode off his wheel. What did you think about that?
Well, look, I think and he's right in a lot of ways that like cycling's lost it's a little bit of its like bearing, like its moral compass a little bit in racing. But it's also because these guys are so good. And it's so hard to get an advantage of these guys ever, and they rarely make a mistake. If sometimes they caught out, I could see some teams going like, "Oh, this is like." I mean, race was on, it split, shit happens, it does. But when you looked at the guys that were in the front there, there was like a lot of race winners too. But I don't know how to take. I think Van der Poel's got every right to be upset about it. I mean, it was early on in the race. It wasn't like, okay, it's race on now for hours and race was flying. It was like a big thing. I do think there has to be a certain point where riders understand, like, oh, this is just the start of the race. Like, this has just happened. It's unfortunate. Maybe we should just cool our jets and just go, let's get it back together again. It's not like a critical part of the race. But I think a lot of teams smelt like, well, they've missed it. Well, other teams are contributing. We'll contribute. We'll all just get in this thing. And, obviously Alpecin being pretty pissed off, they have to, put on a full chase all day to catch some of the best bike riders in the world. Of course they're going to get upset. But whether or not Van der Poel was able to just channel that and go, right, I'll show you guys, it's the best answer, right? To still say, you guys can still try whatever you want to try. I'll just use my team as much as I can, and then when it's time for me to go, well, this is what I got, I'll show you.
That was a really impressive display of power. I mean, he's looking better than ever this year, Mathieu. It's going to be an exciting Tour of Flanders. I have a question for you. Observing some of the top guys like the Van der Poel, and back in the day, you had Sagan and these guys who are super skilled, often they don't seem to crash. Like a Van der Poel, he doesn't crash much, even though he's in these very dangerous races. And you see that with certain riders, and then other riders, often you see crash a lot. It seems to be, is that just down to bad luck, bike handling, or is it like awareness? Some guys just have a sixth sense of where to be, where not to be in the race. What is your take on that? I know you've had a few bad crashes in your career. Most, World Tour pros have had a lot of.
You're trying to say that was,
maybe you were asleep at the wheel.
What am I? What bracket are you trying to put me in?
I don't know. I'm just curious your perspective, because I know there's a lot of situations where it's out of your control. You're in the middle of a pack, they're going down in front of you, you got nowhere to go. But I'm curious why Van der Poel hardly ever is caught up in these crashes, right? And then you have Van Aert, who's often crashing.
Yeah, I mean it is a little bit of luck of the draw or whatever, but all of these guys, their teams are so strong, they keep them out of trouble, right? That's why there's such a race for the front. It's the safest place to be, most of the time. You got less people in front of you. It's only you got less chances of somebody else making a mistake in front of you. But I think with Van der Poel and all these teams that are all these today, and all of them have got such super squads, it's like you keep your leaders safe. They've got less chance of something bad going wrong. But there's nothing hiding the fact that these guys can also handle a bike. They're able to do it better. If you look at Sagan, he was amazing. If half of us tried the stuff he did, there would have been big pile ups, and these guys can handle their bikes a lot better. I mean, they come from a multidisciplined background, racing cyclocross. For sure, they've got something else that the general road rider that's just focused on the road doesn't have. They also ride the cobbles differently. They obviously, where a lot of guys are trying to find the smoothest line, it's maybe not always the best line. It's there's a lot of chance for punctures, for crashes, for slipping off the edge of the road. Where these guys, you'll see most of the time they're riding down the center. They're not looking for the little edge of the road. Maybe where they know they can take a risk like that, they'll go for it. But generally, they're actually riding in a better place, and they understand the risks versus reward versus a lot of the other guys. But I also think, man, all the riders are getting this information all the time. Like, this corner is important, that corner is important, and to be honest, like, you just want to get there. So there's this like urgency from everybody to, like, especially if you're not super good at moving around the peloton, like, your stress levels are just raised even more to race like Flanders, where the roads are narrow and, you know, position here kind of determines your outcome like 30k later, you know, where it's like if you don't get a position on the Molenberg, remember like a few years ago we saw DSM pulling that shitty move where they like try to make everyone unclip up the Molenberg, which, like, to me, that's not cycling. That's a bullshit move. That's like, what are you trying to do here? It's a tactical, maybe you pull it off, but if you're going to pull a tactic like that, you better make sure you go to the line and you win that race, because, like, if you do that, it just pisses off a lot of people. It doesn't work out. It's like, what are you doing? But yeah, I mean, those kinds of things, they set you up for later in the race. So it's very, very difficult to define why they don't crash so much. But generally, man, they're able to ride around a lot of things. They're not always hiding on the wheel because they can take wind, because they're so much stronger. They can get themselves out of situations where a lot of times, and a lot of riders there are trying to hide away from the wind, trying to look after themselves, trying to, like, you know, make it further into the race. So and then to the last minute rush. So
yeah,
like,
that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys are cross-eyed, and guys like Pogacar and Van der Poel are still, you know, very lucid and not nearly on the limit yet, and much more aware. And whereas if you're on the limit and you're taking more risks, you're just trying to hang in there, and that's also, you know, crashes can happen. Plus these big teams, like you said, they can just really protect the guys. So we have Flanders this Sunday. That's going to be really, really exciting. I know you've done it 3 times. It has changed over the years a little, the course, but it's a really challenging race. For somebody who's never done the race, can you give us a little idea of what that race is like, kind of like you did with Milan-San Remo?
Yeah, so like my first time I did Flanders was my second year pro, one of them, and it was a big eye opener. It was we had snow, we had everything. It was like, and honestly, the first time I went to do these cobbled classics, before I turned pro, I was like, man, I want to be one of these guys. I want to race on the cobbles. I want to be like, you know, I want to be like Cancellara and all these guys, because I pictured myself as one of these guys. You know, like, I can, you know, I love to get involved in the racing. And then once I did them, I was like, I don't ever want to come back here again. And I got so scarred. by those first couple of races that I did there, that I actually never came back to the classics for ages. Like, I tried to get out of it every time that my name was on the list. Like, oof, no, you know, try and fake an injury or whatever. But yeah, they definitely races that can scar you. They are so technical. Like, you don't even know where you are, right? You just kind of, if you don't do the recons and understand it, or invest time riding up in Belgium and understanding how to get from A to B, how it all works out, you just kind of like just driving around blind. It's just you're just sitting in the peloton going, oh, what? We're turning left up. Yeah, I mean, the directors can tell you on the radio, we're going up the Molenberg, whatever, but you at that stage didn't even know what they were. But they're very grueling. Like, obviously it's not as tough as in terms of pavé versus Roubaix, because they're just not such long sectors. But everything that you do on the pavé is climbing, which is a big difference between the two. They're very tricky. Like some of them are brutal in the sense that, like, they run into each other, or they're a deciding part of the race, because if somebody drops the wheel there, or if it's wet, typically like the Koppenberg is, you know, a lot of us have seen that iconic picture of like the best bike riders walking up the hill, and then Van der Poel being probably one of the only guys to ride up there. And that just shows you like bike handling skills, but also like there would have been plenty more riders being able to get up that hill. But as soon as somebody stops in front of you, there's just nowhere to go. You're absolutely flat out just on your own line, and whatever. If something stops in front of you, there's no way to correct it. It's so slippery. You know, it's such a difficult race. But there's all these crucial parts in this course are like, nobody knows where the brake's going to go either. Like, we've all seen it. Like, this section here used to be the Tyenberg or whatever. We used to see Tom Boonen like just smashing it on the, you know, that was his like spot to go. Whereas now you don't really have that. Guys are trying everywhere.
We saw Pogacar, a few years ago, I think 2 years ago now, where he rode away
On the
from Van der Poel. Still quite a ways to go. And also Van der Poel last year rode away also pretty early for victory. It'll be interesting to see this year what's going to happen. Van der Poel looks stronger than he did, I think, 2 years ago. Obviously, Pogacar is going to be flying, and there's some other really good riders as well. I mean, it seems like a race of really fatigue resistance. I know that's become a catchy word these days, but with all those climbs in the legs, it seems like whoever has the power in the last, after 5 hours is really the riders who are going to make the top 10. What are your thoughts for this Sunday?
Yeah, well, I mean, those like Quaremont and that is like probably the longest climb, I'd say, in the cobbled climb in the race. It's also the most iconic and probably the place where you can really do the most damage. It's a very tough climb. Like, it's not, if you had to ride up there normally and it was a tarred road, you'd think nothing of it. But just because all your momentum is taken away, right? That's what people forget, is these cobbles aren't like if you go through a little city in Europe and you go, oh, these are cobbles. Those are not cobbles. These cobbles have got like gaps in between them of like, a couple centimeters. It's like they're proper, they're like holes. So the whole time you're just hitting holes, really. And it's your momentum that keeps you going. So if you really sapped, if you don't have much left, the minute you start losing momentum, it just becomes harder and harder and harder. So you got to try and stay on top of the gear then. And the minute you see guys like starting to just blow and they can't hold the wheel, you just see them lose days, because it's that momentum that you can't carry anymore. Where a lot of the times that when you're doing these kinds of races is like the people all the riders that are suffering on, like, as that gap goes, if you can't get around someone, and to get around someone, you got to go often on the shitty part, which is harder. It's like a mountain bike race where you're in the single track, and this guy's slowing me down. But as soon as you venture into the bush, it's twice as hard to pass the guy. So it's kind of similar to that, where you're racing on roads, you don't see the tough sections, but it's definitely a lot harder to come on the side of someone where they're riding on the smoothest part of the cobbles.
There must be a lot of fighting. I mean, for somebody, when I used to race, I didn't love that, coming to a field sprint, all that argy-bargy pushing, and those narrow roads, and those Belgian riders who grow up there, who know every inch of that course. I can just imagine, I mean, it must be like war out there, right? Just to get to the front on those narrow streets.
You have to be prepared to go to war. If you go into those races and you don't want to be there, you'll be spat out before you even get to the cobbles. It's just fierce from the start. Everybody knows getting in the breakaway there could be a huge advantage. I was in a breakaway there 1 year with Taylor Finney and a few other guys. It was the best place to be ever. Like, I know we think like, being out there in the wind all day, but you got to remember, like, being out in the breakaway is such an advantage, because you don't have to fight every single sector for position. You're just with your breakaway compatriots, and you're all getting in there, you're all riding into it, and you stay in your line, and that's it. Whoever's leading on the pavé, that section just does pretty much the whole climb. It's kind of like how it works. Because you're not going to go around someone, it's just harder to go around them. So whoever enters the cobble section or the cobble climb, they just kind of take the pace up, and then you just sit on the wheels. Whereas when you're racing behind in the bunch, you're fighting to try get your lead up there, but there's 20 other teams doing the same thing. The road's so narrow, everybody's just pushing, shoving. And wherever you are, then as you get there, like funnels. It comes to like a funnel for the best line too, and then it's just bodies everywhere. So that's the amount of energy you save by not racing the guys every single sector. You save so much. So the fight for the breakaway can sometimes take 100 kilometers to go in Tour of Flanders, which is nearly 2.5 hours of racing,
So that's just constant attacking from the start, right?
Yeah, it's not like, wait, and let's all settle. It's attack. A group of 5 goes, then someone else has missed it, then they'll close it, then the next wave of attacks goes. Then eventually guys just get tired of racing for 2.5 hours, and eventually the elastic breaks, where everybody's like, okay, Alperson's going to control, let's just let 11 guys go. We've actually got to start thinking about phase 2 of the race here, which is like, how do we get into the Molenberg, which is like so narrow. those are the kind of things guys are thinking about. Because if you had to race until you get to those sections and there's still no breakaway, the race could even be a bigger disaster. So, yeah, it's chaos. The whole day is just flat out.
It sounds one of the hardest. Would you say that's the hardest one-day classic on the calendar in the World Tour?
Oh, it's definitely one of the hardest. They've all got something unique, right? So like Strade Bianchi's got something unique. Amstel Gold, Liège is probably kilojoules-wise. Liège is probably the biggest, I would say.
And Lombardia is also big, I think.
Yeah, they're all different. They've all got a different element of difficulty to them, but that's why they're the monuments. That's why they're so special to win. But if I had to look at cycling, I'd say that like Tour of Flanders is like the Super Bowl of cycling. It's the weekend. Everybody's like, like Roubaix is special, but there's such a different atmosphere at Tour of Flanders.
Yeah. So we have the favorites. We know Van der Poel, Pogačar, Mads close behind. Ghana, Wout, we'll have to see. Didn't look so good in E3. His altitude training, we'll still have to see that pays off. They're gambling a lot on being good for these 2 weeks. Flanders and Roubaix. That'll be interesting to see how he goes. And then we have some outsiders. We have Bettiol, he won it 1 year. Stefan Kung is always good in these kind of races.
Yeah.
We also have Steven, could be good. Jasper Steven, Matteo Jorgensen. Alaphilippe's racing. I don't know if he's ever done a big result there, but if he could be good as well.
Well, they've got an experienced team. You got Matteo Trentin with them. They're a team. Don't be fooled by just because they're a wild card into this kind of arena that they don't have the horses for the courses. Tudor's got a great team. Ineos is riding really well in the classics. There's multiple teams that are riding really, really well.
Magnus Sheffield, not Magnus. He could do well.
X. I mean, there's so many. Let's be honest, it's probably the best classics riders that we have that are going into one race this weekend. The teams are all stacked. Trek, to me, seems like they got it really dialed this year. They've really got a dialed classic squad, which they normally do. But this year, they're not missing too many beats. With Steven and those guys up there, they've got a lot of cards to play. But Ineos as well has got also a great group of riders. Also racing a little bit more positively, a bit more differently to what they used to race. It's going to be a big one. But everybody's focused on the Pog, Van der Poel, who's going to trump who. Where sometimes it's not always that simple. That's what makes it so exciting, because there's so many things that can go wrong here, or right, and let's not forget, there's a bit of luck involved in winning these races. No punctures, no crashes. You can't can't hide away from every single bad thing in these races. You could do everything right, but you can still get a puncture, right?
Seems like equipment has changed over the years. I think when Pogačar won it a few years back, he was using 30, which with the NV rim, I think even goes wider, like 31, close, or maybe even close to 32. I think you'll see more and more riders racing at least 30 with 30 millimeter width tire. It seems like that's a trend now. I've seen some studies even showing that 32 could even be faster than 30. So that's interesting. So I think you see guys also these days descending faster in the rain with the new setup. Better traction, probably a little more comfortable as well, better shock absorption. We also have the SRAM riders, some of them riding the new gravel group set, the SRAM 13. I know Mads was very excited about that. I'm riding that currently on a gravel bike, and I must say it's really, really nice to ride. So it's quite interesting. Those of us into the equipment, it's interesting to see what they're going to come up with. I know Alpecin seem to be more traditional. Van der Poel, I think, is still on 28s. He doesn't change much, He doesn't deviate from a winning formula. Doesn't play around with crank length. Training, I think, is quite similar every year. But clearly it works for them. Whereas you have guys like Visma always innovating, trying shorter cranks, trying different things. It's quite interesting from an outsider just to see what these top teams are doing and what they're going to come up with on race day. Do you think the equipment has really changed the sport, especially the wider tires and the tubeless technology? Has that made it, I guess, just maybe safer and also faster in those rough conditions and those rainy, slippery roads?
For sure. It's I mean the confidence that guys have got from these tires has been huge. We never used to speak about tires at all. I mean, like I didn't even know what tires I had on my bike. I was just like, those are Victorias, those are Conti. Cool. What are they running? It was never ever like a big thing. Whereas today it's like guys win races and they got good tires. You know.
I saw a study. If I remember correctly, there was a bigger difference between, like in the World Tour, between the sponsored tires, between the best and the worst was close to a 20-watt difference. And if you compare that to the best and the worst wheels, like carbon rims, it's like less than 5 watts, at the same depth, right? So there's a far greater difference these days between tires than there are even between, rims and quality of brands. It's quite fascinating actually to see how much of a difference that can make.
Oh, I mean, the technology in the sport's it's so far advanced. Like when you've got teams basically that are lucky that their bike manufacturers also manufacture rims. So some teams are even manufacturing rims to suit their frame type, so that when they put they've done like tests, like it's better to run like a 32 width rim on the front and a narrow rim at the back, and they can do that, right? They can make those rims for that bike to fit that frame. Like they've got the right setup, and then the tires, they might be able to make like their own tires as well. So the tires like fit like perfectly on the rim, and when they're pumped at the prescribed pressure, the aerodynamics from the wheel with the tire, it all syncs up with the frame. So there's so many advantages. Like on our team with like Factor and Black Ink, they're under the same umbrella, so we're able to make, as the team as Factor changes a frame or makes a modification or something, we can then adapt a new kind of wheel or a new system onto the bike, new cockpit on the front with the Black Ink bars or whatever it is, which is fortunate. Some teams don't have that sponsorship. Some teams are riding, I don't know, a certain type of frame and then a different manufacturing handlebar or a different kind of wheel set. Whereas teams that have got that advantage where they're making rims, frames, if they make all the parts, are at a huge advantage because it's all in sync and it's all made for that kind of bike, which is where the sport's going.
It seems like technology around bike manufacturing is becoming even more of a focus these days, and I think certain teams do have an advantage there with certain equipment. Some teams are at a disadvantage, unfortunately, and we've also seen that even the weight of bikes. Some teams have quite heavy bikes, even in the mountains, and other teams have a climbing bike, they have an aero bike. So yeah, it's interesting to see where that all goes. So let's talk about favorites. So how do you see it unfolding this year? Who's your favorite for the men's race?
I think Van der Poel's going to be the man. That's what I don't, seeing San Remo, how he handled himself there, seeing what he did on, E3, I think he's going to be tough to beat. I think he's going to be very tough to beat. Today, for sure, when do you not put this guy as a favorite? But if I'm only going to select one person, it's going to be Van der Poel. I'm sure there's going to be many people who probably agree with me and probably don't agree, but that'll be my pick. I would go Van der Poel, Pog, Pedersen.
Yeah, I love Van der Poel. I love watching him race. He's just such a classy rider and just an incredible bike racer. So I would say the same as you. I think it's going to be those top guys, and I can see Van der Poel this year staying with Pog. I think Pog's going to definitely try to drop him. Has to drop him like he did 2 years ago. But I think Van der Poel this time has just got a little bit more confidence, self-belief. Just how he raced, Milan-San Remo really proved that he can, that Pogačar couldn't drop him there. And I think he's got possibly more confidence than he did 2 years ago, just riding better than ever. So I don't see Pogačar able to drop him, and in the sprint at the end, I think Van der Poel is very hard to beat. And who knows, maybe he even rides away from Pogačar at the end. That's possible as well. So that's going to be super exciting. And then we also have the women's race. I know we have we have some of the very best of the best there. A lot of Kopecki's looking really good. Lorena Wiebes, her teammate, is dominating, winning race after race.
She won the last 3 races.
Yeah, so she's obviously one of the clear favorites for Flanders, even though maybe it's a little long for her. I'm not sure. 168k, a lot of climbing, but I mean she seems to climb well. Longa Borghini, Puk Pedersen, those are the kind of roads that suit her. Marianne Vos, one of the greatest of all time, most victories. She's definitely going to be in the hunt. So, yeah, we're also excited to watch the women's race.
Balsamo, you got so many options. It's interesting to see what the women will do in this race too, where they think it's a deciding factor, right? Like the men have got like the Patersburg, the Quaremont, so do the women, but it's obviously a different kind of different race. It's going to be a challenge for them to see, like, do you think someone will have like a long range attack, or someone will go early, like Elisa Longa Borghini is someone who would definitely have a crack early. Like I could see someone like her just going, all right, I'm going to go from here.
Yeah.
And then there's the cohesion behind where, I still think the cohesiveness in like some of the ladies cycling is not as cohesive as the men's when they need to chase something. There's a lot of like indecision. So that could really favor somebody that's trying to go a long range attack.
Yeah, the women's racing is super exciting, and they don't always have a rider, except in maybe the bigger climbing days, but they don't really have, on these kind of races, it seems like a rider like Van der Poel or Pogačar can just ride away. They seem to be a little closer in these kind of shorter climbing races, so that makes for exciting racing.
Yeah, we'll see with the weather too. I mean, do we know what the weather's doing yet or not?
Actually, I haven't checked, but we definitely need to look, because that could change everything, and that that would favor. I know in the men that would definitely favor Van der Poel. I mean, those guys grow up racing in winter and cyclocross, so that's good for him. But Pogačar seems to like the cold too. So does Pedersen. So I don't know if that'll change much with the big guys, but I know a lot of guys will find it a lot tougher. It was raining last time.
Do you want to be in a wet Flanders, especially if you know you can't win? then that's the worst place to be, because you're just the whole time feeling like I'm risking a lot here.
And what are we talking about? Probably close to 6,000 kilojoules by the end for most guys, 5.5, 6,000.
Yeah, or more than that, yeah.
So, I mean, they're taking on 120 plus grams an hour of carbohydrates.
Yeah. No, and like with cycling now, it's also more difficult like to feed, because you get designated zones now where you're only allowed to feed. So in the past, you could feed kind of on all the climbs everywhere you wanted, whereas today, with new rules, is you can't just feed at your free will. There's designated zones. So if you miss a bottle or you miss something, it could be 30, 40K. It's not like, the next climb I'll just pick up another one. There's someone waiting for me. Then you've got to use a teammate to go get something. Then you've got to... So it changes, the dynamic has changed a little bit with all these classics. So
what are the team? What is their feeling on this? Because I know that favors that previous... The way it used to be really favored the bigger teams with bigger support staff, available to feed guys. Maybe it was a disadvantage to be in a small team. We didn't have that kind of support. What is within your team, Israel, Premier Tech? What is their take on that? Do they like that, or they're not happy about it?
Well, I think we all adapted to a new culture of cycling, and we just had to have those people. So we all adapted and we just made plans. And a lot of the guys that helped on the weekend were just fans of the team, or extra people that could feed. We used to have the same kind of core group of Belgian staff that would help us at those races. And they weren't like staff of the team, but of course they came for the passion of the races. They had some inside access to the team. They loved being on the side of the road, giving the riders the bottles in the heart of the action. So it's a little bit like unfortunate for them, because like now you need to be an accredited staff member in the team. So even if you wanted to use those guys, even if you didn't have enough support within your team, you couldn't even ask for those volunteers to assist, because they're not part of the team. So now the rules are, okay, there's less feed zones, but it's whether or not all these teams were also just relying on volunteers. I mean, we have a lot of staff, so we're able to do it. But there might have been some other teams, especially some of the the lower budget teams that were like, oh, we've got this core group of guys that always just help us at the Belgian Classics, and now they can't use those guys. Now they either have to employ more staff or get them a license, or get a license for those guys that's going to help them. So it becomes even a bigger expense.
And I imagine it's not you to go back to the cars, which is now the riders have to do that more now, right? They have to go back to the cars, whereas some of these younger guys,
they still don't go back to the cars.
They still don't go back, because that's something we used to do a lot back in the day, but it changed over the years. Where
these young guys don't even know how to get a bottle. They don't even know how to get 5 bottles and put in their back pocket. Plus, they're all riding such aero jerseys, you can't fit anything in there. So it's like such a different world now. Where the last 2-3 years of my career, like no rider was going back for bottles, and it was such a thing of like trying to explain to them, there's a point where you have to like ask your teammates, do they need a bottle, and you have to go back, and they are, but why would we go back when we've got staff 5K up the road? And they're right, but that's all changed now. So maybe in the Grand Tours, maybe in the bigger races, riders, well, they normally come back after they've had like a pee break, and now they actually grab some bid-ins on the way through, where that never used to really happen. They used to just whoosh past. But yeah, the young guys also need to like learn that that's also part of the game. And tactically, it will bring in another element, right? If like on the Tour de France, when it's so stinking hot, and you don't have a guy with bid-ins at the bottom and the top of every climb, it makes a big difference if you have a good guy, a good domestic that knows how to do his job and bring the bid-ins at the right time. Then it makes a big difference. So it could actually help grow the sport a little bit, like that it's not so predictable. If somebody does miss a bit in that, maybe then they go hunger flat, but that's a mistake, right? It's like riding a bike. You need to be good on uphills, downhills, everything else. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting how the sport is changing and evolving. Good stuff. So I think we're going to wrap it up. If you guys are enjoying this, please leave some comments. Let us know your pick for this Sunday. We always love to hear your comments. Right now we're uploading this to our YouTube channels, but we are launching an audio podcast channel very soon. So we'll definitely keep everybody posted on that.
Simon will determine the name.
We're still humming and hawing on names. We have a few going around, but we still haven't figured it out, but it's coming. We're taking our time. We're having fun.
Maybe they can tell us in the comments. Should it be cycling related, or should it be totally non-cycling related?
Yeah. Maybe some people can just add some of their own thoughts on. I know some people have already done that, but if they could add some ideas for names for podcasts, we'd really appreciate that.
You just feel bad for the people that have already given ideas, and now they're like, "Oh shit, they didn't like my idea."
Well, we actually do. We have every idea we have right now is actually not from us. It's from people. Some
exactly. But we've got like 2 or 3 that we've narrowed it down to, and we just can't make a decision on what it will be.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks everybody for listening and for watching. And we'll be back next week. We'll be talking about Flanders and also looking ahead to Paris-Roubaix. But for now, we're going to have a great weekend of racing. Really looking forward to it. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Cheers.